Welcome to Ken Hans, the best storyteller in Texas for all of our new listeners. Thanks for being here. Make sure you check back for a new episode every Monday and find us on Instagram at Best Storyteller Podcast. We also love getting your email. Send that to info@hanspodcast.com. And don't forget to go back through our past episodes. There's some great content there and some great interviews as well. Chancellor, you always start us out with the saying of the day. What do you have for us today?
You always want to hire people will take up for you in rooms when you're not there. If you're missing and something's going on, make sure you got someone in that room that's going to speak up on your behalf and what you stand for.
Just good, loyal people.
Good, loyal people, and they know what you want done, and they're going to try to make sure that's done.
Chancellor, something I know you wanted to comment on, and I think it struck everybody as interesting this week. President Biden made a comment talking about his uncle being shot down in World War II, and
Cannibals ate him. I'd never seen a press conference by a president that talked about cannibals eating his uncle. And the Pentagon kind of, they didn't back him up on that. But that's just weird. I don't know what he was thinking about. That's such an unusual subject.
And what was the point of it?
Well, I didn't understand. I don't think it was like cannibals going to eat you up if you don't vote for me or anything. It was just a random deal.
Okay, that was my question. I was wondering if you even know the answer. Is that something that prior to that, when he said it, did someone come up to him and say, Mr. President, this might be a good time to tell the cannibal story?
Maybe they did. Maybe the Republicans got somebody to, go over and tell them, Mr. President, you ought to tell the cannibal story today. Okay, we're off and running. But it was pretty unusual. You didn't hear CNN or MSNBC talk about it much, and Fox gave a bunch of instant replays, about him talking about the cannibals. You look now on the gag order that President Trump's under, and that I can't say anything. Gag orders usually been designed to protect a defendant in a case, and so it's gag orders on him, but not on anyone else, and that's pretty funny. That it's just highly unusual. You're having a trial, and the judge gave to Biden's campaign and was deeply involved in that. And so it's a circus, and we'll see what happens with the circus. Sometimes, bad things can turn out to help you because people feel sorry for you or something. So, who knows what's going to happen. This is the most unusual presidential year. And there's a lot of people, some Democrats, some Republicans, think that Biden's not going to be the nominee eventually. I still think he will be, because who's going to go tell him, well, we need you to drop out?
Maybe the same person that told him to tell the cannibal story.
Well, yeah, it might be, but I don't see him doing that. I think he wants the job, and he's going to continue to fight for it. And we got a rerun from 2020 election.
And the Democrats are now kind of pressuring RFK Jr. to drop out of it, and I think that's just going to make him more determined.
Kennedy's going to get some votes. You go back and look at his dad. Was assassinated. His uncle was assassinated, and his other uncle served in the U.S. Senate, a long period of time. Only thing that worries me about they need to give him protection, and I don't know why Biden. Maybe Biden doesn't like him. I don't know what the deal is, but for him not to give him protection, Secret Service, agents to protect him, it's not wise in this day and time.
And given his history and the history of presidential candidates in the past, they're normally given Secret Service protection during the campaigns.
Absolutely. Anytime you're a major candidate, maybe Biden doesn't want to do it because he doesn't want to acknowledge he's a major candidate. I don't know why, but I think that's a real mistake, and he needs to make sure he has Secret Service protection.
Could you imagine if something did happen to him?
Well, I think it would really destroy the credibility in the campaign of the president that wouldn't give him protection.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to do that.
Let's move along here. I know you wanted to talk about 5 things that your date immediately notices about you.
I saw that survey, and it said 5 things date me. One is hygiene. You got to be clean. Guys, you can't go work out and then smell like a goat and go pick somebody up. That's not going to work. But body language. Body language is very important. Standing up straight, good posture, sit up in your chair. But the other I mentioned a while ago, the second was hygiene and grooming. And how do you look? You want to look like that you spent a little time and that you tried to look nice. Facial expressions and eye contact and looking away. You got to have good eye contact with somebody if you're going to have any connection with them. And then the way you're dressed, as I talked a while ago about grooming, being well dressed and looking good and looking sharp. In manners, and the one that I've read that I think is right and is really smart is how you treat the waiter or the waitress. And especially if your date's ever waited on somebody before. She's going to want to see how you treat those people and what your, I guess also what your tip's going to be. And that's, if you're trying to make a good impression, you want to comply with all that.
I read a very similar article this week, but it was from the angle of a parent looking at a kid that, in my case, your daughter was going to date. And they asked an FBI profiler told you things to look for, very similar to this list. But the thing that he added, I'd love your take on, he said, let him carry a conversation. Let there be silence and see what he does. When you meet him.
That's good unless they just look at you.
Yeah.
And if somebody just looks at you over a period of time, I've tried to get people in conversations from time to time. I've told the story before about a guy called me and said, I know you represent AT&T and I'm going to sue them and all this. And, but I'll settle with them now if they'll. So I called Ed Whitaker and James Ellis, the CEO and the general counsel, and I explained it to them. This guy's going to sue them, but they're willing to settle for this. And I paused so they get in the conversation. They never got in the conversation. Finally, I said, Ed, what do you want me to tell him? He said, get in line. So, okay, I called the guy back and said, on that lawsuit, you get in line, take a number. And so, you do want to have something, say, find out job interviews. I still go back to this. I had a guy apply for a deanship, and I said, how are you? He came in, how are you? 15, 20 minutes later, he's still talking. He was nervous, and he got wound up, and he would not slow down. Talk to himself. Didn't take but about 7, 8 minutes to talk himself out of the job, but I let him go for another 5 or 10 minutes.
I know you raised daughters. Did you have any incidents with boys that they were dating that you didn't like?
No, she picked them out pretty well. They, the one she married at first, he didn't say much. He was pretty quiet. I thought one time if I'd said boo, he might have been gone. But he turned out to be a judge and now district attorney in Fort Worth. So he's good. Somebody asked me, why do you campaign for him so hard? I said, I've seen how he treated my daughter and my grandkids. I know he's going to do a good job. But he didn't talk a lot. But somebody, I mentioned that, said he didn't say much. And they said, hell, in your family, how's anybody going to get a chance? Your wife, your kids, they're all going to be in the conversation. And they're, every once in a while, I interviewed a kid one time for a part-time job in the chancellor's office. And I was just going along, and just for the hell of it, I said, when's the last time you smoked marijuana? He went, Tuesday. And I wasn't. I just kept on going, never said another word about it. And
he probably got together with his friends afterwards, and you're not going to believe this. What he asked me.
It was a little different. Lots of times you need to, if you're interviewing somebody, throw in a different question, throw in something, that's kind of unusual.
And I've always loved how you asked the front desk, the receptionist, what they thought.
I want to know, the receptionist, that they'll see them under different circumstances. Linda Steele, who worked for me for 22 years, one time I interviewed this kid and she said, "Don't take him." Said he won't fit. I can just tell you. That's what made. She said, "I watched him." Said he won't fit. Don't take him. And I didn't.
Yeah. She probably saved you a bad hire.
Oh, yeah. It saved me a bad hire. And had my son one time come to see me, and I had a new hire, and he said, "I know your dad, and I've sat out in the lobby and watched her, and it won't work. You need to go ahead and let her go now." No, I'll tell you, About 2 months later, I was like, he was right. I should have made a change then. It didn't fit. And that doesn't mean they're bad or anything like that. Help them get another job. And, that's a dead issue. Bury the dead and move on.
A quick reminder to like and follow this podcast. Just click follow however you are listening to this. That way you'll receive notifications when a new episode comes out. Also, scroll through our past episodes, and if you don't mind, share a link to this podcast on your social media.
There was a story that came out, and it was from Australia. A guy and I was trying to look, he went to 120 bars in 24 hours. That's 5 an hour. And ordered drink and drank at least a third of it. Now, every drink that he ordered did not have alcohol in it. Some was just water. But you're talking about every 12 minutes. And if he drinks a third of it, if he just, ordered beer, that'd be 40 beers in 24 hours, and he'd be drunk. I was trying to say some way polite, but he'd be messed up. And I guess, he got his name in the Guinness Book of World Facts and World Records, but that'd be a difficult way to do it.
You got to wonder how that came up. Like, what I'm going to do?
Somebody's sitting around, how many beers could you drink? How many drinks could you get in 24 hours?
Yeah.
And guy was, 120. And that's a pretty rapid pace. Also, this week, there was a girl that was applying for jobs, and somehow she got to messing around with her computer, and she got Miley Cyrus when she was Hannah Montana, got her picture on her resume, and she sent the resume, and after a month, she still hadn't heard back from any of them. I imagine they looked at that and said, "Well, hell, she's a nut." Best airlines. This one I'm going to argue with it. That best airlines, they had Alaska Airlines. They just had that door pop open. Right. How'd they get to be number? We got the door popped open. You can look outside. And Spirit was second, and SkyWest was third, or vice versa. And last place was Southwest, and I rank them number one. They're consistent. You know what you're going to get. They had two years ago during Christmas, they had computer backlog, and they got behind and
that hurt
had
them.
some problems. And that probably hurt. But they have a culture, and their culture is one of being friendly. And Herb Kelleher, who started Southwest Airlines, was a friendly guy, and pushed the airline everywhere he went. But I had another airline, a major airline, one time flew me from Dallas to Washington, and I knew the CEO, and I saw him after that, and I told him, "I got one of your flight attendants, and she had been personally trained by Adolf Hitler. She's the meanest son of a gun I'd ever dealt with in my life." And she told me, "What do you want to drink?" And I said, "I'll wait and get something later." She said, "You got to order now. You're not going to get it. I'm going to be busy." And I went, "Oh, okay."
I'll have a Diet Coke.
she was working on me, and I'd paid over $2,000 for a ticket to Washington and back, and it was she was tough.
Maybe she's just having a bad day.
They have to put up with a lot of stuff that I wouldn't want to have to put up with. I was telling somebody the other day that I was on a plane from Washington back to Lubbock one time going through DFW, and there was a kid running up and down the aisle. He's about 4 years old, yelling, screaming, and I grabbed him when he came by me, and I whispered to him, and he went back and sat down and never said another word. And the flight attendant came over and said, "What'd you say to that kid?" I said, "I told him I was going to throw him out of the plane if he didn't sit down and shut up." I think statute of limitations is run on that, but he got quiet, and the flight attendant, boy, she's proud of me. She said, "Maybe I want you on every flight." But kid just his parents had not. I wanted to tell his mother the word no has been invented, and if the word no is backed up by action, probably. A child will not learn discipline and self-discipline unless they are disciplined, and they want discipline. They want to be treated with authority.
Didn't someone hand you their baby and they made a mess in the diaper?
That was a deal where the lady asked me. She had a 2-year-old, and she had one that was a few months old. And she asked me if I would hold her baby. And I was in Congress at the time, and I thought, man, maybe she's a voter in Lubbock or Midland or someplace. She wasn't. She's from Arizona. And but she gave me the baby to hold while she took the 2-year-old back to the bathroom. And she had walked off, and when she did, that baby was straining and was turned bright red and stunk like a goat. I mean, it was just terrible. And people around were going, golly. And I said, she handed me the baby. It's not mine, And she came back, and the lady said, "Ooh, looks like we've had a little accident." I said, "I don't think little would be the correct word to describe it." And so she left the 2-year-old with me while she took the, several months old baby back to get them cleaned up in the restroom. But I've had all kinds of things happen to me on a plane, and that I had a flight attendant one time. I flew into Baltimore late. And this guy had passed out, and she asked me if I'd slap him, wake him up. I'm not going to slap him. And I told her, I said, "Here's a way to wake him up. You take a pencil or a pen, a ballpoint pen, and put it between their middle finger and their index finger, and then squeeze their fingers together, and it wakes them up, and they don't, it's not they come out swinging,
right?
And
where'd you learn that?
I had a guy on an airplane tell me that one time, and if you listen to people, you'll find something out, and but that it'll wake them up. Just gently squeeze them. Don't squeeze real hard, real fast, or they'll jump out of the seat and might just whip you. But it always wakes them up. And the guy had been drinking a little, and he was like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yeah.
Said, "We landed, and we wanted to make sure that you could get off."
Well, since we're talking about airplanes and stuff, did you see the story about the woman that got caught in the airport with the marijuana?
Yeah, she ought to be in the stupid criminal section. She had, you weigh your bags, and if it's over 50, then it costs more. If your bag is more than 50 pounds. Well, she was going to take something out, and she opened it up, and everybody was looking, and there was 56 pounds of marijuana in there. I don't know what she's going to do, take out 6 pounds of marijuana and throw it in the trash.
Right.
And they arrested her, and she was somewhat surprised. If you're carrying 56 pounds of marijuana in your suitcase, don't be surprised when they arrest you. Mm-hmm. You're stupid.
They're going to have some questions for you.
They're going to have a lot of questions.
Have you ever seen that TV show called Locked Up Abroad, where it's people traveling around the world get arrested, and all the same thing? Some stranger asked them to take a bag on the airplane, and turns out it's full of drugs. I mean,
that. If somebody asks you to take a bag on an airplane, don't.
Right.
I mean, that's, there's a reason they're asking you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not very smart. We had, not very smart, a corrections officer in Indiana. There was a girl got convicted and she was sentenced to something. It wasn't murder or any big crime, but this guy got her number.
Oh yeah.
And so he called her after she got out. I mean, she had 30 days or something, and started hitting on her. So she
was on a work release, right?
Yeah, work release program.
And they went and did drugs and had sex and.
Yeah, I mean they got into it, and they had evidently that what they thought was a good time, what his superiors thought was a real bad time. Don't date the inmates. If you're a prisoner, don't date the officers, the prison officers. And if you're an officer, no matter how high or how low you may be, don't be dating the inmates. I mean, you shouldn't have to tell people that.
True. But, that shouldn't have to be in the employee handbook.
Bernie Sanders has been talking about a 4-day work week. Mm-hmm. And Ecuador has decided to jump past him. And they got a 3-day. Somebody going to say, now, do I hear 2? Do I hear 2? Who'll come in with 1? But they had 3, and they've had a lot of unrest in their country, and they think 3-day work week would help stabilize things. And what are you going to get done in 3 days, and how effective will your employment be? 3-day work week, it won't work. There was a kind of a feel-good story. There was at a Taco Bell in Pennsylvania. There was a lady that was a manager named Becky Arbaugh, and she had the headset on and was taking orders. And a woman said, I just looked at my baby, and she's turned blue, and she's not breathing. And so she threw the headset off, went outside, opened the door, and did CPR on the baby, and the baby started crying. And then she went back in and finished taking orders. I said, now there's an employee that you need to keep.
Right. Wow.
Becky Arbaugh saved the kid's life and kept the line moving. Keep that line moving. They taught her you want to be able to get the line where everybody gets through on a certain period of time.
Isn't it funny how there's two kinds of people, someone like Becky Arbaugh that'll jump and take action and do something, and others that will panic and run away from it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but she was the type of person, she knew what the problem was, and she'd done it before, performed CPR on them. And she went out there and got that baby's motor started again and had it crying and head in the right direction. And now, did you want fries with that? Would have been, ask if what they wanted with it. And I thought I was impressed. I was really impressed. Next week, we're going to be interviewing Katie Britt, U.S. Senator from Alabama, and she replaced Richard Shelby, who was one of my best friends and had been in Congress since 1978. And so
big shoes to fill for her.
Big shoes. He was chairman of banking, and then he was chairman of appropriations. He's a powerful guy. And that about half the buildings in Alabama are named after him. Boy, he got a bunch of them named. And that we'll talk to her and be on next Monday. Saying of the day, you hire people that'll take up for you in rooms when you're not there. It's important.